Hey there! Before we dive into today's episode, just a quick reminder, if you're looking for tools, inspiration, or training to multiply disciples right where you are, head over to newgenerations.network. You'll also find a link in our show notes to join the community and connect with others on the same journey. And don't forget, you can listen to the Movement series and all our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Latasse, and I'm honored to introduce this season of the Movement series. You're about to hear the story behind Cabbages in the Desert, a book that shares how God has moved in some of the most spiritually dry and difficult places on earth. These stories aren't just mine. They belong to a growing family of disciple makers who have said yes to Jesus in the face of real challenge and deep need. As you listen to each chapter being discussed, I hope you'll see that movements don't start with experts. They start with obedience. My prayer is that these episodes inspire you to believe that God can do something extraordinary right where you are.
Welcome, Curious Minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a special journey in the Movement series, exploring how profound change truly takes root and spreads. You know, we often talk about these big ideas, grand visions, but the real magic, I think, is how those ideas actually come alive, how they impact communities on the ground. Now, before we jump in, just a reminder, our role here is always to unpack the insights from our sources impartially. Today's material comes from a specific faith-based context, focusing on what it calls disciple-making movements. We'll be examining its structures, its methodologies, really as a powerful model for how any kind of movement, or community initiative can scale and sustain itself. We're extracting those universal principles without endorsing any specific religious viewpoint.
Precisely. And for this deep dive, we're unpacking a really crucial chapter from Dr. Latasse's insightful book, Cabbages in the Desert. That's Latasse. We're focusing specifically on Chapter 7, Unleashing Disciple-Making Leaders. And that title, Cabbages in the Desert. Well, that's a powerful metaphor in itself, isn't it? It describes this seemingly impossible task of cultivating vibrant growth, life in really barren or challenging environments. Think of it as finding unexpected fertility where you'd least expect it. It's a profound concept, really, for any kind of pioneering effort.
I love that framing, yeah. So we're not just looking at growth, but sustainable growth and in difficult conditions. Okay, so our mission for you today is to extract the core wisdom on how to not just start something, but how to ensure it grows organically, multiplies, becomes truly self-sustaining, all through empowered leadership from within. Think of it maybe as a blueprint for growth that doesn't depend on just one person, but a whole network. Okay, let's unpack this. So Dr. Latasse introduces a powerful idea right off the bat. A disciple-making movement, or DMM, isn't just about making disciples. It's inherently a leadership development movement. What does this really mean for how we approach any initiative? Why is that distinction so critical?
Well, it's a bit of a game changer, actually. It means that the growth and, importantly, the quality of any movement, whether it's faith-based, social, entrepreneurial, whatever, it's directly tied to the growth and quality of its leaders. You just can't have one without the other. And what's fascinating here is how the goal shifts. It moves from merely adding numbers, counting heads, to cultivating individuals who can then lead and reproduce the process themselves. This fundamentally decentralizes the whole effort. You move away from relying on maybe one charismatic figure.
Right, the single point of failure.
Exactly, towards a distributed network of capable people. And that makes the movement far more resilient, much more adaptable, and less likely to collapse if one key person steps away.
That makes perfect sense. It's about building a robust system, not just, a personality cult. So the chapter lays out a pretty clear progression for developing these leaders from within. It feels almost like a step-by-step guide for cultivating that capacity. Can you walk us through these essential mileposts?
Absolutely. And the entire process begins and is continually guided by something the source material calls prayer. As Adu, who's a coordinator in the movement, puts it, we learned that we first needed to start with prayer, which can open things that wouldn't open any other way.
Yeah.
Now, for a broader audience, you could translate this to a profound commitment to seeking guidance, aligning purpose, fostering this deep sense of shared intention before and during every action. It's like constant fuel.
So a deep, almost spiritual grounding for the whole effort, regardless of the specific context. Okay, what comes after that foundational commitment?
The next milepost is to carefully identify potential leaders. And this isn't done by making grand announcements or looking for existing titles. It's done by observing their character, their commitment to the movement's core principles, their wisdom, their genuine care for other people, and their initiative. Sometimes these qualities pop up surprisingly quickly, maybe within just 2 or 3 interactions. So it involves asking thoughtful questions, maybe assigning small, low-stakes tasks, and then closely watching how they respond, especially under a bit of pressure, and also showing genuine care for their personal and family lives. You're looking for those natural inclinations, that alignment with the values, rather than just imposing a role on someone.
That's powerful. Identifying leaders through observation and action, not just credentials, very organic, sort of merit-based. So once these individuals are identified, how do you then empower them to actually step up?
Right. So once identified, you empower these emerging leaders. This means equipping them. Equipping them with the knowledge they need in this specific context. It's biblical knowledge. But for any movement, it's the core tenets and skills, right? It also means deepening their personal commitment and development, building practical leadership skills, and helping them establish resource networks right within their own communities. Albert, another leader who works in sensitive regions, he really highlights the necessity of this. He says, we need to train them well because we as outsiders don't hang around in those places. We equip and empower them, then disappear so we don't expose them to undue suspicion. And a key insight here, what the source calls the golden rule, is this. Don't do for people what they could do for themselves.
Wow, that's huge.
It is, because that doesn't empower them, it weakens them. This fosters self-reliance, genuine ownership, and it ensures the movement becomes truly indigenous, self-sustaining.
That golden rule resonates far beyond the specific context, doesn't it? It's about building capability, not fostering dependence.
Okay, so after identifying and empowering, what's the next stage of development?
Then comes coaching. And this is described as a highly relational, ongoing process. It's focused on developing skills through actually doing the work together and then debriefing those experiences. Thomas, another person mentioned, notes that even after achieving some success, leaders still have challenges and questions, so I still coach them and help them to grow. It's about real-time, experience-based learning and refinement. A more experienced leader guides a developing one through actual, real-world challenges. It's not just a one-off training session, it's continuous.
So very hands-on, learn-as-you-go development. What happens when they seem ready to, fly solo? Well, the next step is you release them. You release them to take full responsibility. In the source material, it references Jesus' command to go in Matthew 28:19 as implying this kind of autonomy. Now, it's not about disconnecting completely. You still offer that prayer and encouragement, that support, but the reins are effectively handed over. For higher-level leaders in the movement, this might even include more advanced training, like theological training in this context, to equip them for broader engagement and maybe handle tough questions from outside the movement. The key is genuine delegation and trust.
Right. And for any movement, the ultimate goal isn't just to grow bigger, but to multiply itself, right?
Mhm.
How does that fit into these mileposts?
That's the final milepost, replication. The ultimate goal really is for these new release leaders to reproduce the entire process themselves, to go out, make new disciples, start new groups. The source points to Jesus spending 3 years in this intense life-on-life discipleship, specifically preparing his followers to do exactly the same thing. And Andrew's observations on these decentralized gatherings, they just underscore how this multiplication naturally happens when leaders are equipped to lead their own groups and then raise up others to do the same. It becomes this chain reaction of leadership, and running through all these stages, kind of woven into everything from identification right through to replication, is constant mentoring. This involves building capacity, developing skills, fostering teamwork, and it also highlights the critical importance of character. The source really stresses this. If character goes wrong, it affects everything. So if issues of integrity come up, a leader might be, temporarily pulled from an area to prevent damage to the whole movement. Even the senior leaders, what the source calls apostolic leaders, those focused on pioneering new initiatives, expanding into new territories, even they benefit from ongoing mentoring and accountability. It keeps everyone grounded and effective.
Wow, this whole approach seems incredibly structured, yet, as you said, deeply organic. It really builds from the ground up. The chapter also introduces something called the DMM Leadership Pyramid. Can you break down these different levels for us? It sounds like a kind of roadmap for advancement and impact within a movement.
Yeah, it is a really powerful framework. It illustrates how leadership develops through 6 interconnected levels, starting right at the grassroots. Each level builds on the previous one. Think of it like a ladder, maybe, of increasing influence and responsibility, but it's always rooted in that local engagement. So at level 1, the base, we have the person of peace, or Poppy. This is the entry point into a new community. The poppy is an individual who shows interest, welcomes the messengers, the initial people bringing the ideas, and often opens their home for the initial meetings, which in this context are called Discovery Bible Study, or DBS, groups. A DBS is basically a simple way to look at Scripture together. Justin, mentioned in the text, emphasizes that the aim is for the pop to eventually become another worker themselves. They are that crucial initial spark, the person who lets the movement get a foothold in a new social sphere.
Ah, okay. So the poppy isn't just a passive recipient, but a potential participant, maybe even a co-founder right from the start. That's a key insight for any community organizer, I think. What's the next step up?
That's exactly right. Level 2 is the inside facilitator, disciple maker. This is the local person, someone from the community, who takes over leading that initial DBS group from the outside leader who might have started it. They replicate the pattern they've experienced, guiding the group in discovery and obedience to what they learn. They are the first internal leaders. This ensures the message and practices are culturally relevant and actually owned by the community itself. This is where true indigenization really begins. Then, as groups multiply, we move to level 3, the multiple group coordinator. This leader scales things up by overseeing several of those grassroots DBS groups. The example given is maybe 5 groups of around 15 people each. They mentor the inside facilitators, those level 2 leaders, through that real-time experience-based coaching, maybe meeting weekly or bi-weekly. This level also involves identifying and appointing other local leaders, sometimes called elders, within new simple churches, which are basically just small, adaptable community gatherings. The insight here, I think, is how this structure prevents bottlenecks at the top. It allows for rapid, localized problem solving and adaptation. That's a hallmark of truly scalable movements, not just DMMs.
That's a crucial point about preventing bottlenecks, yeah. It sounds like the mentoring and coaching really expand at this level to ensure that growth stays healthy. What about the leaders who oversee these coordinators?
Okay, that brings us to level 4, mentors and coaches. These leaders oversee several of the multiple group coordinators, often within a specific region or maybe among a cluster of related people groups. Their primary role is to develop the coordinator's skills and capacity. They do this through regular visits, listening carefully to their challenges and offering relevant training. This is where leadership truly develops grassroots upward, because the learning and development are directly informed by the practical experiences, the immediate needs of those actually on the ground. It's hands-on support for those frontline leaders. Next up, at level 5, we have movement leaders. Now, these leaders oversee multiple streams and even generations of the movement. They often interact with top country leaders. They focus on structuring the overall growth, developing networks, building leadership teams, and providing deeper, sometimes more formal, equipping. For instance, the text mentions theological studies like Old Testament surveys or studies on specific books like Ephesians or Joshua. This is to prepare leaders with what are called pastoral gifts, people with a strong aptitude for nurturing and guiding communities for these maturing churches or groups. This helps ensure the movement's doctrinal health, its strategic direction, and just a broader understanding overall.
And finally, at the very top of this pyramid, we have the catalysts for even wider expansion, right? Those who initiate new growth in new places.
Exactly. Level 6 is the global catalysts, also known as apostolic disciple makers. These are really seasoned movement leaders who have the experience and gifting to launch new movements among what are called unreached people groups, or UPGs. These are communities where the movement hasn't yet gained a foothold. They might do this in their own country or even in other countries. They act as red-hot embers, to kindle new fires. They serve as catalysts, mentors, coaches to emerging movement leaders in those new areas. And what's crucial here is that they always operate in teams. They focus their efforts on unengaged areas where that initial spark is most needed. This provides support, shared wisdom, and just broader, more resilient impact in those really pioneering efforts.
So it's clearly not just about a linear progression. There are these underlying principles keeping everything moving and healthy across all the levels. What are some of the other critical factors that Dr. Latasse highlights for truly sustainable movement growth beyond just this leadership structure?
Yeah, there are several key things. A really critical point is simultaneous leadership development. The source points out that Jesus didn't wait to launch his full ministry before finding leaders. He developed them as he went, modeling the process right from the start. So people in the movement are encouraged to constantly ask themselves, as I am doing this role right now, who is the next person who could be doing this?
Mm-hmm.
This prevents initiatives from becoming overly reliant on external leaders. And it ensures that movement DNA, that core of reproduction and self-sustainability, is passed on from day one. It's like immediate succession planning.
That's an insightful way to look at succession, not as some future problem to solve, but as an ongoing embedded process.
Absolutely. And the chapter also strongly advocates for continuous learning. As Dr. Latasse puts it, when you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, something dies. Quote, this applies to all levels of leadership. It emphasizes adapting to different contexts, urban versus rural, literate versus oral learners, different cultural or religious backgrounds. It's all about staying flexible and responsive to the environment you're in.
I can certainly see how that adaptability would be key to growing, cabbages in the desert. What about external connections? How do these emerging movements link up?
Well, movements thrive on networking and collaboration among like-minded practitioners. These networks provide essential tools, sometimes financial resources, training, and just a vital exchange of information and ideas. The goal, interestingly, is to move beyond just a transactional network to feeling more like a family. This fosters trust and increases effectiveness through that cross-pollination of ideas and collaboration. This communal aspect really strengthens the whole endeavor and prevents groups from feeling isolated. Also, something often overlooked but incredibly important in the source: sabbaticals. Even catalysts those high-level leaders need to rest. Sabbaticals are presented as essential for leaders to refresh, get new energy. But they also serve this vital, almost diagnostic purpose. They test the sustainability of the movement when that leader is absent. If the movement kind of falters when a key leader steps away for a planned break, it highlights a dependence that needs to be addressed for true long-term sustainability. It's like a built-in stress test for the system.
That's a fascinating way to gauge the true strength of a movement, its ability to thrive without constant, direct oversight from one person. Finally, what are some of the overarching key factors that Dr. Latasse summarizes as being crucial for the movement's ongoing progress?
Yeah, Dr. Latasse summarizes that the progress really hinges on several key factors. First and foremost, prayer and fasting is the foundation for everything, signifying that deep spiritual grounding we talked about earlier. Second, majoring in outreaches, which means consistently seeking to engage new people and expand the movement's reach. Third, indigenous sustainability. This is huge. Empowering local people and relying on their resources. There's an example from northern Kenya where people shared corn flour to sustain missionaries, showing how vital local resources are for ownership and long-term viability. It avoids that dependency on external aid. Fourth is teamwork. Consistently sending people out in pairs or small groups for mutual support and effectiveness, often fitting local cultural norms better. Fifth, access ministries. These are creative ways to engage communities by meeting practical needs, things like literacy programs, veterinary services, providing fresh vegetables, maybe sewing classes. These actions build relationships, build trust, and open doors for deeper conversations about the movement's core message. And finally, ministering by faith. This is inspired by figures like Hudson Taylor, a 19th century missionary known for his trust in divine provision. The idea is the movement operates by trusting in a higher power for provision, rather than relying strictly on budgets or external funding. Ultimately, the narrative presented is not me or Lifeway, referring to external organizations, but it's an illustration of a greater purpose, using ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things.
What's truly remarkable here, listening to all this, is that relentless emphasis on decentralization and indigenous leadership. It's really about cultivating a mindset where growth is everyone's responsibility. And everyone, from that very first contact, the person of peace, all the way up to the global pioneer, is equipped and empowered to play a vital part. It's about building this robust, self-sustaining system where the roots run deep within each community.
Exactly. It really challenges our traditional ideas of what leadership looks like, and where it comes from. It seems to prove that true power lies in distributed capability. And as we said, this isn't just about faith. It's a highly effective, adaptable model for really any kind of movement or community development that aims for lasting impact. What you start needs to multiply. And what you multiply needs to be sustainable, not only growing through more and more generations, but continuing as lasting groups of people following that shared vision. So what does this all mean for you listening in? Whether you're leading a team, building a community, or maybe just trying to make a positive impact in your own sphere.
Indeed. It makes you wonder, what are the cabbages in the desert that you might be called to grow, right in your own sphere of influence, by maybe unleashing the potential in the ordinary people around you? A powerful thought to end on. That brings us to the end of this deep dive into Chapter 7 of Cabbages in the Desert, part of the Movement series. We really hope this exploration of unleashing disciple-making leaders has given you plenty to reflect on and perhaps even apply. Until next time, keep digging deeper.
Thank you for joining us for this journey through Cabbages in the Desert. It means so much to me that you've taken time to listen, to reflect and to lean into what God is doing through disciple-making movements. If these stories have stirred your heart, I want to encourage you, this isn't just a story from far away. This is an invitation. The same God who moved in the desert can move in your city, your community, your network. To get connected and take your next step, visit www.newgenerations.network. You don't need a title or a platform, just a willing heart.
Thanks for listening to the Movement series. To find more episodes and explore tools that help you multiply disciples, visit newgenerations.network. And be sure to check the show notes or our bio for a link to join the community. We'd love to connect with you. Finally, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. See you next time.